Sports Network. Welcome back. We're back at it again after week 3. It was an exciting weekend. A couple upsets, a couple games that we went the way we expected them to. But again, it's me, David, Colin, Bryant. We're back at it again. We're excited to get back to talking a little college football, give you guys some good insights. So today we're going to start off a new and exciting segment we're going to talk about. We've been thinking about it for a little bit, but with this Heisman race, there's been a lot of players just really shining bright. So the segment is going to be called Dog of the Week, not D-O-G, it's D-A-W-G. Big difference there. So what that's going to be is that's going to be a player that we, as Deep Threat Sports Network, have highlighted to be a player that performed, well above and beyond. Maybe had crazy catches, maybe had, great throws, maybe some electrifying plays, but that guy that you love to have on your team. So, right to start us off, our first week doing Dog of the Week, we got Arch Manning, and I'm sure that's no surprise to anyone. University of Texas, Quinn Ewers goes down, he shows up and has a heck of a game. So, Colin, talk to us. What do we like about Arch Manning, and why is he our Dog of the Week?
Well, what's funny here is I'm pretty sure last week we talked about how a viewer came in and said, can Arch Manning come in here, taking snaps from Quinn Ewers, take him out of the Heisman race? And I kind of feel like that's what happened here. Quinn Ewers comes out for an injury. Yes, he didn't just exit the game to put Arch Manning in game because of poor performance or anything like that. But yeah, last week we talked about Quinn Ewers atop of the Heisman race. This week gets hurt. Arch comes in off the bench, unexpected, comes in and to your point, lights it up. 223 yards, 4 touchdowns, 53 rush yards, and another rushing touchdown on the ground. The guy was absolutely electric. I do think he probably works himself in here a little bit to a few of these packages when Quinn Ewers does come back. I'm sure Steve Sarkisian is in no rush to force Quinn Ewers to come out here before he's ready. Yeah, man, Arch Manning did exactly what he's supposed to do. Definitely lived up to the hype. The guy gets out in open space and absolutely bleeds people standing, blowing their doors off, getting to the end zone for a rushing touchdown. I thought it was funny. We all hopped on here, said, hey, who's going to be our Dog of the Week? All three of us at the same time said Arch Manning. So Deep Threat Sports Network, our DTSN Dog of the Week, first one for us. Yep, Arch Manning. You got it. Bryant, what'd you see with him?
I thought it was pretty remarkable for a young player. He's a true sophomore, come in, first pass, throws a touchdown, 75-yard rushing touchdown later on in the game. We've never seen a Manning run that fast. I guess he got those speed from his mom. But anyway, yeah, it was pretty remarkable for him to come in and be so efficient. Yeah, it's impressive. I really do agree. I think he gets a few more snaps moving on in the rest of the season, even though Ewers will probably be back relatively soon. But it was impressive. This was an easy pick for Dog of the Week.
I don't think he takes Quinn Ewers' job. I know none of us said that. I just want to kind of reiterate that a little bit. I really don't think he forces himself into being the everyday starter for this football team. Quinn Ewers has done great things. Quinn Ewers was just at the top of everybody's Heisman ballot. So I just want to make that clear. I don't think he takes this job. I just think he works himself into a few snaps. He kind of brings some things to this offense that Quinn Ewers doesn't bring. He obviously made it clear that he could be a dual threat guy. He could get out and use the legs. When that Texas team is pretty thin at that running back position and doesn't really have that strong of a run game going this season, they have relied heavy on the pass game. So I just want to make that clear. Don't think he takes the job. I do think he gets some more snaps, though, for sure.
Colin, my thing is, if he doesn't take the job, I think he's just making Steve Sarkisian's life hard, because when you have a player come into a game and put up these kinds of stats, we've seen it, year in and year out at Alabama. It happened all the time at Alabama, where you have a great quarterback, then you have, another quarterback step in, play a heck of a game, and it's like, is he forced to give Arch Manning more reps at this point? Because Arch Manning knows that he can play. Not that he didn't know he could play, but to this level, just to show up, out of nowhere in the, at the beginning of a game, take over that game like he did with such an insane win. I think it just makes it harder for Steve Sarkisian.
I think the biggest thing is I think it just kind of gave Steve Sarkisian a little bit of a headache. And I don't mean a headache and a bad headache. I know there's not really good headaches, but kind of a good headache. It reassured him that, hey, when Quinn Ewers, if and when, obviously something did happen, does go down, we've got the guy to back him up. We're not going to lose a step. In some areas, you're going to gain a step, kind of like we talked about the run game here just a second ago. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing at all. When you have two competent quarterbacks like this, It is very reassuring for the head coach. It is very reassuring for the program. This will be Arch Manning's job next year. Quinn Ewers will be out of the picture. This is all Arch Manning. I just hope the fans don't really get in the ear of Steve Sarkisian too much, man. Quinn Ewers, I can't stress this enough, was just at the top of everybody's Heisman ballot last week, coming into this week. So Quinn Ewers goes nowhere, in my opinion. It's still his job. Arch Manning just made things a little more fun, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think I agree with you guys. I think you have to roll with Quinn Ewers the rest of the season when he comes back. I mean, he won the job in spring camp and also in the fall camp. I was talking to some friends this past weekend. They made a good comparison. I think this compares a lot to the Jalen Hurts Tua combo from a few years back, where I mean, Jalen Hurts, that national championship game, he wasn't playing up to par, and they brought Tua in. I think you could do that in this situation too. If Quinn Ewers is not, throwing the ball around and run this offense like he's supposed to do, you could easily bring in Arch Manning. But if that case doesn't ever arise, I do believe that this is Quinn Ewers' job.
Absolutely, gentlemen. We'll see how that plays out. We'll see if Quinn Ewers wins the Heisman, takes the helm of Texas. But done with Dog of the Week. That was very exciting to talk about that, and we'll continue doing that week in and week out, giving you a different Dog of the Week every week. And hey, it might be the same guy again. That is a possibility. But talking about the rest of the episode, we're getting into game one of the weekend that we're going to talk about today. First, we got Arizona at Kansas State. I mean, is Arizona a one-way show? I mean, is it just Fifita to McMillan? Like, is that all they got? I mean, is that what Kansas State exposed here? I mean, what does that look like?
Yeah, this was a super awesome Friday night game. This was one of two top 25 matchups. There's only two of those games all weekend. This was one of them, and it was Friday, and it was awesome. We're super high on K-State here on this network, so they showed up and showed out, protected home turf like we wanted them to do. They have an absolute problem at the running back duo for them. Dylan Edwards, DJ Giddens, those guys are two big-time guys. You can hand the rock to them at any point in time, and they can really make things happen for you on that offensive side of the ball. Avery Johnson, this network super high on Avery Johnson. Avery Johnson looked electric. His stats don't show exactly what he did. Remember this play like it was last night. He rolls out, makes the absolute best throw I've seen on the run in a long time from a college quarterback, puts it right in stride in the breadbasket. Receiver just doesn't come up with it. I remember texting one of my buddies that moment, said, that was one of the best throws on the run I've seen in a long time, and it really was. He is absolutely electric. The sky's the limit for this kid. The sky's the limit for this Kansas State program. They are my Big 12 favorites right now. They're my Big 12 favorites coming in. They're really reassuring things for me. But, hey, yeah, this Arizona team, they're a very good team too. The defense did not impress me much at all, but I do feel like what you're saying, Dave, is very accurate. I do feel like this is very much so Noah Fifita. Look for Tet McMillan first. If he's not there, hell, throw it to him anyway. He's down there somewhere. Even when he's not open, the guy's open. The guy's an absolute problem. First-round draft pick, we said it before. We'll say it again. The guy's an absolute stud.
Yeah, I think we learned quite a bit from both teams on this. Arizona, I agree with Colin. I think they're kind of one-dimensional. I know they had a running back hurt for this game, but it seemed like it was all Fifita and McMillan the whole game. And you have to have some sort of a running attack too to win games in this league. And on the K-State side, I mean, I personally haven't seen Avery Johnson really run around and make plays with his legs like he did this past weekend, and that was crazy to see. I mean, he was running all over. I think he had the most rushing yards on the team. So if he can keep up that and maintain the amazing passes, like especially the one that Colin said, that's going to be a very hard team to beat down the stretch.
Yeah, if I remember right, too, I think we were 4-5 on our bets this weekend. So it was our first losing weekend of the season. Things did not look great. But, hey, Kansas State, we had the over in this game. And both these teams came out with a very slow, efficient offense in the first quarter and definitely didn't see that happening. If I remember correctly, I think there was only 2 possessions in the whole first quarter. Both teams had a possession. Both teams drive and score. And this looked like it might be a slow-paced dogfight. And then it kind of changed when Dylan Edwards returns a punt return for a touchdown to start the second quarter, and things kind of opened up a little bit for Kansas State. Not necessarily Arizona. They didn't do much the rest of the game. But for Kansas State, they really kind of settled in, used the home field to their advantage, and they really took off in this game and, left no doubts.
Absolutely. I know you guys, a big emphasis for both of you guys was the running game, like how much of a difference it was. I mean, just looking at the stats, Arizona only had 56 rushing yards, and then Kansas State had 235. I mean, almost 4 times as many. So I agree with you guys. I mean, I think that made a big difference there. And, McMillan will catch the ball, but how often can you do that,
Well, when you can open up the run game like this, Dave, it really takes a lot of pressure off a younger quarterback like Avery Johnson. It really lets the play action pass work. It really lets the run pass option work. It really opens up the whole entire defense the whole entire offense when the defense has to crash down in the box a little bit because they're really afraid of the opposing team's legs. So this really makes the pass game work. You have to have the run game, in my opinion, before you have anything else going. You saw Arizona's run game not work. You saw Arizona's offense not work.
Yeah, I feel like K-State has always been, short to medium pass team when they are passing. And I feel like if they're rushing like this and they also have the threat of Avery Johnson, creating plays with his legs, that definitely opens up that type of passing game. And it could be very effective moving forward.
Avery Johnson's got an absolute rocket. I don't know if you guys were like really honed in on his delivery and how fast the ball was getting there. The guy absolutely puts it on his receivers. I mean, puts it on them. They have no time for error. Sometimes he does need to throttle back a little bit on, the short to medium range passes because he puts so much zip on it and does make it tough. But yeah, this guy is an absolute machine, fellas. I'm all in on the Avery Johnson experience.
Hey, looks like we got a lot of good quarterbacks here, Sher. I mean, not just at the big schools, but all across the board. A lot of good quarterbacks. But talking about quarterbacks, next game we're going to talk about, there was a lot of controversy within the quarterback. We've got Alabama at Wisconsin. As many of you already know, Tyler Van Dyke went out with an injury, looking like he may be out for the rest of the year, which is a killer to Wisconsin. So they had to throw in a new quarterback up there. And then you also have Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe had a heck of a game. Was this if Tyler Van Dyke would have not gotten injured, would it have been more of an impressive win, or would it have been a tighter game, if anything? Would Wisconsin have at least held up? That's what I want to know.
I don't think so, honestly. As soon as he got hurt, Wisconsin, the whole crowd was out of it. The team just seemed like it was done. It kind of sucked the life out of the whole stadium. I mean, we had Alabama, I think, covering this game anyway, so I don't think it would have changed a whole lot. And it was kind of obvious when the game started going that Wisconsin didn't really have an answer for Milroe, whether it was passing, and especially it was not running. That guy was running all over the place. I don't think that Van Dyke getting hurt would have changed much, honestly. So I don't know what you think, Colin.
No, man, this game, maybe a possession or two, maybe better for Wisconsin at most. Wisconsin didn't show me much, fellas. I just don't think they match up at all on these big-time teams like this. I don't think they match up against your Bamas, your Ohio States, to give you a Big Ten example. I just don't think it's there quite yet. Tyler Van Dyke, to me, isn't a difference maker. He doesn't blow you away. So Alabama gets this done regardless, in my opinion. Braden Locke does come in. He did the absolute best he could, right? I don't think that guy thought he was going to make a start to that day against Alabama. And Alabama just obviously wasn't going to take it easy on the kid. They beat him up pretty good. They were in his face all game. Wisconsin receivers got absolutely no separation all game whatsoever, so they weren't helping him out. Chaz Malusi is about the only upside to this Wisconsin team that I saw at all. And even that guy can't get much done when nothing else is working for him. But on the Bama side of things, Jalen Milroe looks great. Jalen Milroe is absolutely exceptional at running the football, and he is exceptional at throwing deep passes. The middle pass game, the short pass game, little work to do still, but everything else looks good for this team. Ryan Williams, absolute rocket ship at the receiver position. Another touchdown in this game for him. Has scored in all 3 games so far. Absolutely electric player for them. I really did feel, not that I felt like Alabama didn't never have the momentum, because they did, but I really feel like the wheels fell off for Wisconsin when they missed that field goal at the end of first half, and Bama drives straight down the field and scores on them in like 2 or 3 plays, I think, if I remember correctly. This game was all Alabama. Alabama goes up, in my opinion, in our top 25 rankings. Alabama is the real deal. They showed anybody that had any sort of doubt at all that there should be no doubts whatsoever. This team's off to the races.
Yeah, I just got one small thing to add. I just think it's crazy that Ryan Williams is 17 years old and playing like this for an SEC football team. He may be one of their best receivers. I just think that's crazy. The guy should be a junior or senior in high school.
It's absolutely nuts.
I mean,
it's nuts.
He reclassified, right, from the 2025 class to 2024.
Yep.
So for those people that may not know, what does that I mean, can you just decide to reclassify? How does that work at that level? Do you guys know how that works?
Yeah, it's similar to how it works in college basketball. You just basically push yourself up a class if you're eligible is basically all it does.
Okay, so you're
Yeah,
basically graduating early, essentially.
Yes.
yeah. I think you have to have grades, credit hours. I think something along those lines. So probably something that like the premier athletes are probably kind of planning for ahead. And I think it just worked out really well for him. And what a time for Alabama to get him. Because could you imagine what this Alabama offense would look like if maybe they didn't have him? Because Bryant, you talked about how he looks to be their best receiver, a top receiver, and I think he is their best receiver. The guy absolutely is exceptional at running routes. He's exceptional at getting open. Has great hands, great speed. The guy's just he's a total package, fellas. He's a total package, and doing this at his age, you're right, Bryant. Absolutely unbelievable. I don't know if I've seen anything like it, especially in a long time.
I mean, this isn't the first time he's doing things ahead of his age. I mean, he was a two-time Mr. Alabama football, and he was the first sophomore to do it. Like, he's just been doing this on and on and on. So, like, we could look at this guy potentially being in the NFL at 20 years old. How
He
insane
took his birth certificate.
That's absolutely nuts, man. It's crazy too because there's a lot of times where just true freshmen, 18, 19-year-old freshmen don't perform at anywhere near this level at all. And he's doing it at 17, which makes it even more incredible. Freshman receivers don't really do this in college all that often. And he's got 3 touchdowns in the first 3 games and making himself look like a grown man. So yeah, good point, Bryant. I want to talk about that every single time we bring his name up because if anybody's ever missed it, they need to know it. It's absolutely unbelievable what we got going on here in Alabama with Ryan Williams.
Yeah, I think we'll just have to wait and see if teams start to key in on him the rest of the season. If that kind of throws him off his mojo, because I imagine they'll start pressing him at the line and stuff to see if they can knock him off his routes. So we'll see, but he's definitely off to a great start.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a great point because size is probably his only deficit, and it seems like he's overcame that or used that to his advantage or however you want to word that. It's never been a problem for him before, so I'm sure he'll find a way as well.
Hey, that's what we got the offseason for, baby. Weight room. Speaking of another great player, let's talk about Kyron Lacy playing South Carolina. Very controversial game. I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. I think it would have been a little better officiated. South Carolina takes a W. I know there was two specific penalties that were called against them. I think one was a horse collar. I didn't see a horse collar, but, I could maybe give them that one. But then down the road, we also had on the pick 6. I want to ask you guys about this because, again, I've never played football, and this is a situation I've never seen. He throws a pick 6, running down the field with it, but then he's running to make a play at football, and then naturally he gets blocked, falls over, and then that's when they call the other penalty. What exactly were they calling there? I mean, if he's not playing the ball, I can see that, but he's making an effort towards the ball. How is that a penalty? I mean, I'm sorry.
This completely pissed me off. You're 100% correct in everything that you just said. I totally agree with you. If Garrett Nussmeier, when he throws this interception in the red zone, remind you, this pick 6 would have sealed this game for South Carolina. I can't say with 100% certainty would have sealed it, but I'm 99% sure this would have sealed the deal for South Carolina. Absolute bullshit call, in my opinion. You made the point, yeah, where he's coming to make the play. If Garrett Nussmeier stays over there kind of in the pocket from where he threw the pass, not trying to make a play, not trying to be an athlete, totally fine if somebody goes and takes a cheap shot on him. Protect him. I respect that call. But you're exactly right, Dave. Garrett Nussmeier was rolling to the play. He was heading in the direction of the ball carrier to make a play. Now, if he's trying to say that he wasn't trying to make a play, then just stay your ass put. Don't go over there. You don't have to worry about it. I think this was an absolute terrible call. South Carolina, yes, I think should have won this game. I don't want to take away from what LSU did. They rallied. They ponied up. They did come back and win this football game. Was a very exciting, impressive game all the way through. But yeah, Dave, I'm with you. I think a little bit different of a call in that situation. This game ends totally different, and it's South Carolina's football game.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that was anybody but the quarterback for LSU. I think the flag would not have been thrown, but it is what it is. It was quite a heartbreaking end for this game for South Carolina was how close that field goal was at the end too. I mean, they had the game in the bag. It seemed like through 2 quarters. I mean, there was people tweeting online for Brian Kelly's job and Blake Baker's job, so how bad LSU was playing. But I think we got to give credit where credit's due. LSU did come back minus some bad calls, which we talked about. That's what good teams do. They rally when they're behind. And see if they can ride this momentum in the future.
Well, the biggest thing for me that I want to talk about too is we talked before this game about how Rocket Sanders and South Carolina's run game has to get going, take advantage against LSU's weak front seven. And fellas, they did exactly that. They did exactly what we talked about. They did exactly what we asked them to do. And it worked. It worked. I think they should have won this game, like we've already said. Lenora Sellers, for me, not spectacular at all, but he did snap a big run that was absolutely huge, got the momentum back in their pocket, really kind of seemed to suck the wind out of LSU for a little bit. Dave, you did call Kyron Lacey a second ago. You mentioned his name. The guy is an absolute stud for LSU at the receiver position. He is a difference maker. LSU has proven again to have another exceptional receiver. That guy is a future first-round talent, in my opinion. But yeah, when Lenore Sellers gets hurt in this game and Robbie Ashford comes in, I feel like everything kind of changed for South Carolina. It gave LSU a little bit of that silent hunch that, okay, now's our time to strike. Let's pony up. Let's force this comeback. And they did exactly that. Robbie Ashford could get absolutely nothing, and I mean nothing, done on the offensive side of the football. Was not impressed with him at all. Not a good backup. I do think this South Carolina team is pretty solid. They're going to give a lot of teams fits. I look for good things for the South Carolina program. That defensive line, fellas, it's filthy. They're mean. They're always in the backfield. They made LSU's top-ranked offensive line look like they maybe weren't a top-ranked offensive line, or we just tipped the cap to South Carolina's defensive front like I'm going to. They are next level. They are going to give teams fits all season long.
Yeah, I agree. I think South Carolina, that this wasn't really a massive setback for them. I think they're better than we all thought they would be, and I think if they keep playing like this, they'll win more games probably than we anticipated and take a little heat off Shane Beamer. That being said, I think LSU is a bit concerning. Their defense is just not good at all, and I don't think they have the playmakers like they had last season to score more points to be able to overcome that. But we'll see. I mean, Kyron Lacey is an absolute stud, and Nussmeier is a pretty good quarterback. So if they can keep scoring on this clip, I think they'll be okay. But the defense is quite concerning, especially because our beloved Blake Baker is now their defensive coordinator.
Well, I mean, once again, this is just another LSU team that just has to outscore everybody. Like you said, Harold Perkins can't do everything on the defensive side of the ball for them. And outside of him, they just don't have much in mind. They did not impress me in any way at all. But yeah, Brian, you made a great point. I can't say I feel better about South Carolina than I do LSU because South Carolina just lost to them. But I have a whole lot more questions for LSU than I do South Carolina. I think you're right. I think South Carolina, not necessarily overperforming, but they're overperforming our expectations. So we have to reevaluate our expectations for South Carolina. And I think we do have to reevaluate our expectations for LSU. I know none of us were that high on LSU. We did all think they were a solid program. We did all think they could score some points. And I think we did all expect a little bit better of a defense from them. So, yeah, don't really know where this season takes LSU the rest of the way. And I really don't know where it takes South Carolina. But I do think you're right. South Carolina will end up better than we ever thought in a million years that they would.
It is the SEC. You got to perform every single week. This isn't, Mountain West Conference. No offense to Mountain West, but, there's a lot of competition here. And that is shown in the next game we got coming up, Mizzou. We're a top 10 team going into this, playing Boston College, also top 25 team. So very competitive game. I would probably say for sure the most contested Mizzou has been this year, but they survived. They overcame. At some points we were kind of unsure how this was going to go. Castellanos still played decently well, but I think Mizzou just put a lot of pressure on them and they forced those interceptions. But what did you guys think about that game? I mean, does that raise any questions about Mizzou at this point? Or is it, Boston College just played a good game and, they finished out because that's what good teams do.
I think we're about the same personally. I actually attended this game and it was quite concerning. The first drive, Boston College just drove straight down the field and scored. That was a little concerning. And then Mizzou does nothing on offense to start their first drive. But, Mizzou had an interesting defensive scheme going on this. They were dropping 8 and only rushing 3 for the majority of the game. So they were trying to contain Castellanos because we know how good of a runner he is, and their running back is also very good. So they were getting 0 pass rush, and it seemed like we weren't doing anything on the defense. And then the 2 plays that they scored on were busted coverages. Castellanos fumbled one, and the whole defense just ran towards the ball and let a guy wide open. And that put Boston College up 14-3. Mizzou kind of settled in. This is the first adversity they have faced all season. And I mean, we have like 40 new players we're integrating in. So they got to face adversity for the first time and they settled in, especially the defense, forcing a turnover. And then Mizzou scores right away, goes for 2 and ties the game. So that was kind of cool to see, but it was a bit concerning right away. But I don't think it changes my perspective on Mizzou a little bit. I think it actually, helps solidify it a little bit to see that they were able to come out of the adversity they did face.
Yeah, I agree with you for the most part. I'm a little concerned in some areas for Missouri, but then again, I tell myself this was the first game of the season where they were tested. Old school Mizzou probably would have dropped a game like this, probably wouldn't have bounced back. I talk about that, and they did lose to Boston College the last time they played because they couldn't bounce back. They couldn't recover. They ponied up in this game. Eli Drinkwitz got this team by the reins and said, hey, fellas, get your ass back out there. Got a lot of football left. Just keep going. Keep leaning on them. You're eventually going to out-talent them. We're going to outplay them. We're going to out-scheme them. We are going to win this football game. That's exactly what they did. Yeah, Brian, you talked about this a little bit. I was so pissed off and frustrated watching this football game. Every time they rushed 3 or 4, Boston College was successful on the offensive side. Every time Missouri rushed more than 4, they absolutely blew the play up. But they were in Castellanos' face. He couldn't get out of the pocket. He is very dangerous outside of the pocket, not dangerous inside the pocket. I really am impressed how this Missouri defense did kind of answer, especially after that first drive, because Boston College drove it right down their throats. And when that happened, I was like, holy shit, maybe we are going to have some problems with this kid. I didn't think we were going to, but maybe we are going to struggle a little bit. That was the first points Mizzou has gave up on defense all season. I was really curious how they were going to respond, and they did exactly what we wanted them to do. They gutted this out. They grinded this out. It was a hard-fought win, and they earned it. The only thing that kind of upset me that made me have some doubts in the second half of this football game is, if I remember correctly, I think we were up 24-14 at one point, I think, and Mizzou didn't take that football game over. They didn't put their foot on their throat and stomp them out. They kind of got a little complacent. You could tell Luther Burden had some really stupid penalties, and he shouldn't do that as the leader of this football team. And it kind of allowed Boston College to come right back. Next thing you know, you're sitting there as a Missouri fan or a Missouri player or a Missouri coach saying, holy shit, this is a one-possession game, and it's going to come down to us getting the first down right now. And Mizzou did go get that first down. They did answer. Brady Cook, great play, great read, sealed the deal. The only thing I'm concerned about, too, with Brady Cook, the deep throws look a little off still. The deep throws seem to be a tick off. I don't like that. I feel like Mizzou has very, very, very much so explosive and deep threat capability, and I feel like for them to be successful and to be a playoff caliber team, they are going to have to hit the deep ball consecutively, and right now that's the one thing that we don't have. Luther Burden did prove yet again, absolute playmaker with the ball in his hands, absolutely made this defense look silly when the ball was in his hands. I felt like we took too long to get the ball to Luther Burden. I felt like we took too long to get the ball in our playmakers' hands. I was reassured by our run game. Our run game looked great. Blake Craig, the kicker for Missouri, has a leg. That's reassuring for them again. I'm a little down on Mizzou, but not down in a bad way. Just have a few more questions than I had last week.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You're good.
No, you're good. So kind of hitting on how you talked about Brady Cook, and then you talked about how good Luther Burden is, and we all know he's got the speed. Luther Burden only had 6 receptions. I mean, I think with the caliber player he is, we should be throwing him the rock more often. Kind of like if we feed it to McMillan. Do you think that's because we can't throw that deep ball? Do you think that's making a difference? Because, even if Luther Burden can get that separation, but if Brady Cook can't get the ball there, is that why he's not getting as many receptions? I mean, why are we not feeding the ball to Luther Burden? I mean, he is one of the top, I would probably say for sure the top 10 players in the country. Why are we not just spoon feeding him? I just think we got to put the ball into his hands more. We got to throw it at him.
Yeah, I agree. I think part of this has to do with the defensive schemes that some of the teams have against Mizzou. I think they bracket him a lot. I think they're have a linebacker underneath and a safety over the top, and it's just kind of hard to get it to him. But I think we kind of saw in this game, Mizzou has some plays up their sleeve where they can get him open with motion across the middle, or just a quick pitch pass in front, something like that to get in the ball. And they did have a few of those plays in this game. But I think they're trying to get the ball to him, but I also think part of it, like I said, is defenses are keying in on him.
Yeah, Brian, you're absolutely correct. You see a lot of bracketed coverage against Luther Burden, and I totally get it. But in moments like that, where you do have a top 10 player in college football, you have to have your quarterback make the throws. The quarterback's got to make the throws. There's going to be some tight coverages that he's going to have to get the ball in there to him on. And I think Brady Cook can do it. I think he needs to get his legs under him a little bit more, settle in. The My big receiver that nobody talks about or that we don't get the ball to at all, that I think should be on the field a lot more than what he is Marquise Johnson. Mookie Cooper is very good. Theo Weiss is very good. It's hard to say, hey, he needs to take those guys' jobs. They're upperclassmen. I'm not saying anything like that, but I think he should definitely be much more of a rotational piece. You see this guy contributing to the team however they ask him to. He's on punt coverage. He's going down there, blazing down the field, making tackles on every punt. This guy just wants to play. He's an absolute dog. He's a gamer. Line him up in the slot more. I think you get a guy like Marquise Johnson in that slot with that burner speed. I think it does help open up a Luther Burden, because then you got to take the safety over the top and you got to roll with Marquise Johnson. So, yeah, there's a lot of things Mizzou can do. Maybe they're still hiding some things. I don't feel like they are at this point as much facing a top 25 opponent like Boston College. And one thing I want to talk about, too, while I bring up Boston College again, is Boston College, fellas, will beat a lot of ACC teams. They will beat a lot of college football teams this year, a lot more than we ever thought. They are not a bad football program at all. Bill O'Brien has this thing going in the right direction. So I'm going to leave it with that. Mizzou, I think the sky's the limit for them. Brady Cook's going to take them wherever they go. They can go as far as he takes them, I should say. And Boston College is going to beat a lot of football teams, and they really impressed me in this football game.
Man, we're high on Mizzou here. Clearly, look at Brian's gear. I'm pretty sure Con over there has got a Mizzou polo on, if I'm not mistaken. But SEC is just one of the most competitive conferences. So next, we're going to hit into another big game. We're going to probably say something that you don't hear often. Georgia disappointing. I mean, Georgia played Kentucky. I understand Kentucky played, I would probably say, almost as perfect of a game as they could have. I mean, they played their hearts out. But, I mean, at the end of the day, they were playing number one team, Georgia. So, I mean, it was late in the game when we were kind of like, man, no way is Kentucky going to pull this off. I mean, what does that do for ranking? A million things. But talk to us. What were the issues with Georgia? Why could they just not put Kentucky away? Or was it just the fact that Kentucky played, as best as they could?
Kentucky played a lights-out football game, in my opinion. And when I say lights out, I don't mean they were world beaters. I don't mean that they set the world on fire with stats. But Kentucky, this is the absolute best performance you could have got out of Kentucky against a Georgia caliber opponent. This was the hardest Georgia had been played in the regular season in some odd years. I was just talking earlier in the week last week about how Missouri had gave Georgia the toughest regular season games in a while. This one takes the cake. I think Georgia fans, I think Kirby Smart, at some point, we're probably all sitting there thinking, holy shit, we might actually drop this football game to Kentucky. We talked a little bit about Mark Stoops' job. Obviously, you didn't get a win here, but this is what I would call a good loss. We've talked before how there's such thing as good losses, and this was a good loss. You have a 1-point loss to a Georgia football team that has not been tested in a long time in the regular season. They're setting the world on fire. They're supposed to go win the national championship again. Carson Beck was supposed to be the Heisman frontrunner. We caught a little heat from a fan last week about not having Carson Beck in our Heisman votes. This really solidified everything we had talked about a little bit. Carson Beck, definitely you're not going to find him in our Heisman race after this week. It was a really bad performance for him. That's something else you're not going to hear very often. This was just a really slow, grinded out, no offense, ugly football game. But if you like some defense, this was the game for you.
Yeah, I agree. Georgia typically seems to have one of these games every year where they, probably should lose and they come in to sneak it out on. Kentucky did play good. I thought Vandagriff played better than Carson Beck. Thought the Kentucky offense was better. I think the only thing that's really comes out of this game, in my opinion, is maybe Georgia isn't as dynamic as we thought they were. That their weapons are good on offense, but it doesn't seem like they're as high profile as they were last year.
Well, this showed, to your point, Brian, this showed every other team on their schedule, hey, they're beatable. They're absolutely beatable. They're not going to beat everybody by 30 points like we thought. They're a very beatable football team. I think you're absolutely correct. Dominic Leavitt looks to be their, I guess you would call it, sure-handed guy or their most reliable receiver on the team. Reminder, transferred out of Missouri to Georgia a couple years ago. But I think he's probably their go-to guy, and you kind of take him out of the equation. Things don't look as smooth. ETN didn't look as smooth. I don't think ETN's by any stretch of the imagination a bad running back. He's an absolute stud. I just don't think anything looks smooth for them this game. And I really do look for them to answer all these questions going into the next game. I am not panicking if I'm a Georgia fan. I am not panicking if I'm Kirby Smart. I'm not panicking at all if I'm Georgia. Hey, you snuck one out. You won one that you shouldn't have. The rest is history. Nobody will talk about this 3 weeks from now when your margin of victory in the next 2 games are 24+ points.
Next game I want to talk about, I know it's going to fire Colin up. You know, I mean, we talk about how many good quarterbacks there is in college football today. Florida, not the case. They cannot get it figured out between DJ Lagway, Graham Mertz. A&M coming in, Wegman's out. They got to throw in Reed. And he performed not too bad, you know, almost better than what Wegman could have done, or I don't think they skipped the beat there. But you've got Graham Mertz, you know, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but he's more of a game manager, you know.
Well, I want to cut in real quick and talk about Marcel Reed before we go anywhere else, because before I get pissed off and get fired up about what Billy Napier's got going on in his situation, I want to give credit where it's due. And Marcel Reed won this football game for Texas A&M. He came in, Wegman gets ruled out right before the game starts. Connor Wegman has not looked good. We've talked about it on this show. But Marcel Reed comes in, goes 11 for 17, 178 yards, 2 touchdowns, 83 yards on the ground, and a touchdown on the ground. You mean to tell me right now you don't think Marcel Reed's not going to be a part of this equation for Texas A&M going forward? I beg to differ. I think this guy really pushes for Connor Wegman's job at this point. And I think coming out of this game, I think we have 2 teams that have a quarterback controversy going on. So I'll kick it back to you. I just wanted to give credit to Marcel Reed while I could real quick before I lose sight of what I'm about to talk about, because I became a big fan of this kid. I really think the guy's a stud. And I do think he helps this A&M offense more than Connor Wegman does at this point. Absolutely.
Let's talk about the Florida quarterback battle. I mean, Billy Napier is 1 foot out the door at Florida, it seems like. I mean, again, we talk about there's different thought process, philosophies, coaching styles. But at this point, when you're a week away from getting fired, possibly, you know, something like that in the case of Billy Napier, I mean, I don't think you start the game manager quarterback. I think you go ahead and start DJ Lagway. He's more dynamic. He has a better chance of putting some numbers up, winning you the game. Graham Mertz is just going to sit there, and he's not going to do terrible, but he's not going to do great. He's going to be an average quarterback, and that is not what you need right now. But, Colin, tell us why you want Graham Mertz at the starting quarterback position.
Well, I don't want Graham Mertz there. And DJ Lagway came crashing down to earth this week too. You know, let's not sit here and talk about how he's the next Tim Tebow. I think he can be the next Tim Tebow for this Florida program, but he did crash back down to reality, not playing a Samford again. He played an SEC caliber defense. Texas A&M has a very good defense. DJ Lagway, I'm pretty sure, did have 2 interceptions in this football game. I think for me, why I get so frustrated is how do either one of these kids at the quarterback position ever feel comfortable? They're out there and they feel like every time I make a mistake, guess what? I'm not going to come back out on this next. I made a mistake. So they're playing with the tight ass. That's all you can say about this. They're so tense because they don't want to make a mistake, let the other guy have the advantage. You're also trying to implicate 2 offenses now. So the offensive line never gets really comfortable. The run, nobody ever gets comfortable. You know, both quarterbacks have different releases. Both quarterbacks have different throwing motions. Both quarterbacks make different reads. So now the receivers are off timing a little bit. I want to talk about A&M again real quick. We talked last week about how the run game for A&M has to get going. They did exactly that. Le'Veon Moss gets it going on the ground with 110 on the ground. So Billy Napier's in a bad spot, man. It's no longer a conversation of if he's going to get fired. It's a conversation of when does he get fired. I don't think they have any better options to turn to right now. I don't think Florida really knows what they're going to do right now. I think they know for sure they're going to move on from him. They have a whole lot of questions. Nothing looked good. There was no fluidity at all of this Florida football team. The fans are booing Napier on his walkout. The fans are chanting Lagway. The fans don't even know what they want. They're all over the place. This is an absolute dumpster fire right now. I don't even know what to say, man. Just buckle up if you're a Florida fan for the rest of the season. I feel for you. It's going to be a grinded out season. I don't know what else to say. I'm speechless about the situation.
I feel like we're almost beating a dead horse with this team a little bit, but if I'm in Billy Napier's position, which I don't think he'll be in for very much longer, I think you just got to pick somebody, you know. roll with them. Don't just do this 1A, 1B and roll them one in series and then one in the next series. It doesn't work. Like you said, they're playing with the tight ass and nobody knows what, they make one mistake and they're getting pulled. So I don't know. It's kind of confusing with Florida right now. I just don't see a really good path forward. So I do want to jump back to Texas A&M real quick. I had an opinion on that one. I think you roll with Marcel Reed the rest of the season personally. It's not easy to play in the swamp, and he came in and performed like he's been a starter there for 2 years. He shows way more playmaking ability with his feet than Wegman does, and I think he's just as capable as a passer. So personally, I think you roll with him. And I'm people on the broadcast, Jesse Palmer and the other guy I can't remember who he's teamed up with in the booth. They were kind of saying the same thing. So, I think they roll with him, but we'll see what Mike Elko decides.
Well, I want to reiterate just a little bit because I'm totally with you. I think Marcel Reed's the much better option for Texas A&M at the quarterback position right now. Florida's defense isn't good either, though. So
That's true.
But you are correct. It's a road game. It's in the swamp. Very difficult place to play, and it still isn't SEC defense. I just wanted to say I don't think that defense is world beaters by any means. But yeah, man, the offense looks schemed up well for him. It looked like it was a good fit. Everything worked. The run game got going. The pass game seemed to be safe. I can't say it really got going. He only had 178 yards, but it looked safe. It looked consistent. It looked like they had a very good, scheme and tactic going. So yes, Brian, I'm with you, man. It worked, and until it doesn't work, keep doing it.
Yeah, we'll see how he fares against future opponents.
Man, and speaking of future opponents, I want to keep Billy Napier at Florida the rest of the year because I want to see Billy Napier go against Mike Norvell on November 30th and play Florida State. I mean, I just think both programs are going to be in shambles.
What do you want to watch that game for? That is a battle of dumpster fires right now. You just want to see who's the bigger dumpster fire?
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to see. I want to see because out of these two coaches, one of them it's just bad. But
what channel is that game going to be on?
The CW.
PBS.
The CW.
It might take over Coco Melon's spot. We don't know.
What, man, dude? This might be on Nickelodeon. They got the slime going in the background and shit because nobody's gonna want this one.
It's gonna be at 8 a.m.
Oh man.
But speaking of Florida State, Memphis played at Florida State. Again, I hinted at it already. Florida State is just crumbling at every corner. Is it because of so many transfers? Is it because they can't get some continuity throughout the team? Is it Mike Norvell? What is the problem?
It's a lack of talent, in my opinion. I think they miss in the transfer portal a lot because they're no shortage of transfers. They're just shortage of talent from the transfers, in my opinion. DJU looks terrible. We don't need to talk about him again. I feel like with Florida State, kind of like Bryant talked earlier about how we're kind of beating a dead horse over the Billy Napier thing. I think we're beating a dead horse at Florida State. We've seen enough now. It's no longer a small sample. They don't look good at all. I don't think they were ever in this game, man. I know the score was tight, but I just felt like they never were in it. Every time Florida State got the ball back, I never had that feeling in my chest where I was like, they're going to go get points right here. No. It just never worked. The receivers don't look great. The passing game from DJU doesn't look great. The run game doesn't look great. I think they're in between so many different running backs right now they can't decide. The defense hasn't impressed like we fully expected them to. I don't want to say the defense is responsible for any of this because they're not. But we also did think Florida State was going to have a top 2, 3, 4, 5 defense, and that's also not the case right now. I don't think Mike Norvell's a bad coach. I'm a firm believer in Mike Norvell. Look what he did last year, man. He knows how to coach. He used to be at Memphis. He got this job from Memphis. He proved that he's a great coach. He turned Memphis around. He had Memphis going in the right direction. Yeah, it's a tough loss for Mike Norvell. Losing to your last program. I don't know where you go from here if you're Florida State. Kind of the same thing for Florida, man. We kind of joked about it a second ago. It's going to be on the CW, PBS. Just buckle up. Hope for the best. Shoot for a bowl game at this point. And yeah, man, look to next year. Start over.
Yeah, just quickly, I think Florida State's issues is truly in the trenches. I just don't think they have the players on the offensive and defensive line to, break out games and make plays. They only had 37 yards rushing. That's a testament right there. I think that if they pick it up on the O-line play and in defensive line play, I think they could be better. But right now, they're just Swiss cheese.
Well, before we move on, because we're kind of just briefly discussing this game and the next two, I'm gonna tip the cap to Memphis real quick. Fantastic
Yes.
job. You come
Yes.
in, get the job done. You're a group of 5 trying to make the playoffs. Right now, you look like you might be the best group of 5 teams. Well, I say that. Fellas, there's some really good group of 5 teams here that we're not covering a whole lot just because the games don't line up for them correctly. But Memphis is a really good team. I do expect them to be around that 12 seed playoff spot come the end of the season. Congratulations to them.
Yeah, that 12 seed spot's kind of heating up. So we'll see how that. I saw a graphic on watching one of the games this past week. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 teams with a greater than 15% chance to make that 12 spot. So we'll see.
Which is awesome, man. I love that. I love that
Yes.
we have some parity for the 12th spot, because my biggest fear was coming into this 12 seed playoff thing was, does that 12 seed have absolutely zero chance at all? I still don't think their chances are great to make a playoff run, because they're not. But having parity, I feel like you're going to find the best group of 5 team this way, and that's what we want. And I think that is awesome. I think that's awesome. It gives another dynamic for us to watch, gives us another dynamic for us to cover later in the season when we got 4, 5, 6 teams lining up to make that 12 seed push. So yeah, that's awesome. Absolutely awesome stuff here. College football is great this season, fellas.
Absolutely. I'm with you guys. I'm the biggest fan of get a team that, probably wouldn't have made the playoffs, or it was even like a very quick, battle there. They just, somebody's feelings are going to get hurt. But that's the excitement of college sports. Another game that was very exciting, Notre Dame at Purdue. I mean, the score was 66-7, but Notre Dame plays 3 quarterbacks. I was impressed with Texas playing 2, but playing 3 quarterbacks,
Hey, Texas played 3, buddy. Arch Manning did so good. Texas played a 3rd.
I missed that. I missed it by a long shot.
Well, nobody cared when Arch Manning came off the field anymore. Everybody changed the channel at that point. They were there for the Arch show.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this game, you said this game was exciting. If you're a Notre Dame fan, this game was exciting. If you're a Purdue fan, you turned it off 10 minutes in. Riley Leonard looked absolutely electric in this game. Supposed to be playing hurt. Didn't think I was going to see any of this from Riley Leonard this week. Where was this at last week? This Notre Dame team's just up and down. I want to tip the cap. Yes, they did everything correctly in this football game. I'm not going to go back and overhype Notre Dame like a lot of people are, because they looked so poorly last week. I cannot get that out of memory. I think maybe you take this game and last game and average them out, and they're somewhere in there. But yeah, Riley Leonard, 100 on the ground, 112 in the air. Still, no passing touchdowns. That's one thing I got to see Riley Leonard do. I got to see him prove to me that he can use his arm, and I got to see this Notre Dame team prove to me that they can throw the football. And when they start throwing the football and winning football games by 40 points because they're throwing the football, I'll overhype them again. Until then, I'm going to stay pretty even kill on them. At this point, I don't have them making the playoffs anymore. I don't think they can make the playoffs anymore, in my opinion. So, I don't know. I think they're somewhere in the probably 26 to 30 range for me, team rank-wise. What do you think, Brian?
As far as ranking, or just what I think about Notre Dame?
Just kind of in general. I'm just kind of using the 26 to 30 thing to try to give a gauge where I think they're kind of at. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just curious to see if anybody else feels the same way, or if you guys are kind of back on the Notre Dame hype train again, or where you guys are kind of at. Because I think the receivers are awful.
Yeah, personally, I think Notre Dame's a little higher than 26 or 30, but I'm not talking much. I think 20 to 25. I think really what this game showed, I think it solidified how good Notre Dame's defense is. I think they're got a bunch of playmakers on the defense that's going to keep them in a lot of games. It kept them in the Northern Illinois game last week. And if they can keep up some of this momentum like they showed in this week on the offense, how Riley Leonard played and how Jeremiah Love ran the football, I think they can be a team that we kind of thought they were at the beginning of the season. But I do think they're on the back end of, a top 25 type team.
Jeremiah Love is the best part of this offense, and it's absolutely not close. Because I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Notre Dame lost their starting center for the rest of the season in this game. So now they're down again on the offensive line, and that's not good. We've already talked a little bit before in previous episodes, lost both tackles to the draft coming into the season, lost your starting left tackle for this season, the season-ending injury, had another lineman pile up. Now you're losing your center. So just not helping this Notre Dame offense. But yes, Bryant, that Notre Dame defense is sick. They're a sick puppy. They're going to keep them right in the games. I just don't think this offense can really do it for them.
I agree.
And I don't think Marcus Freeman as a coach can do it for them. I don't think he can fill that void to help get them to the next level to overcome, a lesser offense.
Yep.
I mean, I'm kind of with Bryant. I don't think they're as far as the 26, I think they're somewhere in those last 5, 2025, probably on the lower end of that. I don't think they're terrible, but they won't make the playoffs. I agree with you, Colin. I don't think Marcus Freeman is that. I don't think he's a bad coach, but I don't think he's that good where he's going to make a difference. He's not going to be a Nick Saban, shows up, makes things happen. But again, only time will tell. They got a decent schedule lined up, so hopefully they win out. Hopefully Riley Leonard can figure it out. Hopefully he can throw a touchdown. I mean, I'm with you. He's got to throw a touchdown. I mean, it's kind of what you're doing there at the quarterback position. On the other end, we've got another quarterback that actually played pretty well. We've got Dylan Gabriel, the Oregon Ducks. I mean, 20 for 24, 291 yards, 2 touchdowns, 64 rushing yards. Pretty solid performance against a decent Oregon State team. I don't know that there was any question. I think there was some questions about Oregon on whether they were that team they were supposed to be, considering all the money they have. But again, Oregon, I'm looking at them more. They are a playoff team, but it's just a matter of where do they fit in.
They needed this one. They needed this one bad. I wasn't full-blown panic, but I can't tell. I would be a liar if I told you guys I wasn't panicking a little bit. They just weren't showing me much, man. Dylan Gabriel wasn't showing me much. I don't know if it was just early jitters on a new team. They were trying to iron some things out, and they just happened to run into a very solid group of 5 Boise State team that kind of punched them in the mouth a little bit and made them earn it. But they needed this game. Dylan Gabriel needed this game, and they got it going. The run game got going in this one again. Tez Johnson is an absolute unit on the outside for this Oregon Ducks team. Absolutely electric punt returner. Oregon's offensive line played great. Solid performance as a whole from Oregon Ducks. They did exactly what they needed to do. Answered some critics. Oregon State's not a great team, but it's a good enough opponent where when you punch them in the mouth like this, it answers a lot of questions, and they did that for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think Oregon showed how dynamic they truly can be. I think they had kind of a 2 workhorse running backfield with Jordan James and Noah Whittington. And I do, like Colin said, Tez Johnson is a pretty good wide receiver. I think, what did he have in this game? 110 yards on 7 catches. So that's pretty impressive. I don't think they have the defense like we're going to see with a lot of Big Ten teams, but if the offense can keep playing like this, they're going to win a lot of football games.
Yeah, there are no shortage of playmakers on that offensive side of the ball at all. We don't even talk about Evan Stewart much, and that guy is an absolute difference maker at receiver position and would be most team in the country's number 1. So there's no shortage of talent. You're right, Brian. This defense has really got to pony up and keep them in every game.
Well, guys, we talked a lot of football. We probably threw out some controversy. We got Colin fired up. We got to calm him down because next episode we're going to talk about Heisman contenders. I know I had Travis Hunter at the top of my list last week. Colin's going to talk to you. Brian's going to talk to you. We're going to see who's got a more accurate Heisman picture, but we're also going to talk top 25. I know you guys are very curious about that because there's a lot of shifts going on. Not that very many teams, move up or down because of their wins or losses, but it's just kind of how the way it played out. But it's going to be very exciting. So, again, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to us, whether you're on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you like to listen to us. Thanks for supporting us. The more you guys listen to us, the more content we can bring, the more we'll put into it. Not that we're not putting everything into it, but hey, again, we're learning, we're getting better, we're improving. It's going to be a week-to-week progression, and we're going to keep getting better, and we're going to keep on rolling.
Hey, day by day, week by week, baby. We're doing things the right way. Yeah, give us a follow on Twitter or X, call it what you want, at DT_sports_. Find us on YouTube at Deep Thread Sports. Find us on Spotify at Deep Thread Sports. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, drop a comment, tell us what you think. Tell us if you think Dave's Travis Hunter pick for Heisman's heating up, because I think it might be. The guy might be onto something here. Tell me if you think Bryant's picks are shit. Tell me if you think my picks are shit. Just let us know. Whatever it is, just let us know. We love it all from you guys. We appreciate it. Until next time, That's Bryant. That's Dave. I'm Colin. Peace.
Peace.